to the God is Awesome podcast, and we are so happy to have you here. My name is Aaron. I'll be your host for this show. We are so excited to have Kate on the show. Kate, say what's up to everybody.
What's up? What's up?
So on this show, we interview other Christians and other people about how God has worked in their life, the testimony, how they came to Christ, and all that. And so we're just super excited to have you, Kate. I'm super excited to have you. I've known you for quite some time now, and really just gonna dive into who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, from like birth, your childhood, your history, your how you grew up, your parents, and how you met Christ. Maybe give us some background, how long you've been a Christian, stuff like that.
Yeah, big bets. Well, I mean, I kind of like grew up in the church. I've pretty much, I guess, been considered a Christian for most of my life. But when I want to say about 2, my dad actually ended up leaving my mom, so I was just raised by a single parent. It was just me and my brother with my mom. So I had like grown up in the church, and I don't know, I guess because I never really had like what it meant to be raised by 2 parents, I always just kind of like thought of things myself because my mom was busy working, trying to like, keep a roof over our head. So like my brother did most of my raising of me and my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that kind of like pushed me into like a direction of having to grow up really fast, having to learn things, fast. And
What happened? So your dad left your mom?
Yeah, he was cheating on her, and actually left her for the woman that he's still married to today, actually.
Okay.
And just kind of left us to fend for ourselves. Didn't leave my mom with much. Actually, nothing.
Did he help you? Did he raise you? Did he give you discipline?
No, never kept in contact, just completely dropped off the face of the earth. Every now and again we'd get like a birthday call, but that's about it. I only ever really knew his voice. I never knew him in person.
So you never had a relationship with him?
Never. Yeah. Never.
Wow. No financial support, no nothing?
Nope. Nothing.
So it all fell on your mom and your brother?
Say again?
So it all fell on your mom and your brother?
Yes. Yep. So my mom and my brother, and then of course, I mean, we had help from like our family members, but they also had families to raise themselves. So, but yeah, like in the midst of that, my mom was just trying to make ends meet. And then I think I want to say about 4th grade, my mom moved us out to like a small town called Tavares. I guess it's more considered to be closer to Orlando. Most people would know that area better.
Okay.
And I think from there, I just started experiencing all these like crazy rejection like feelings that I had never felt before, because like my mom did a really good job of loving us so that like we wouldn't ever feel like not having our dad around wasn't enough. But I think being a younger girl and not having her dad, it's like you fall into this like, what was wrong with me? What did I do wrong that my biological father couldn't even love me? how
does that show itself, this feeling of rejection? What does that look like?
I mean, I just kind of, I don't even really know how that feeling started to present itself. I just remember waking up one day and just being like, wow, I have like this emptiness inside of me and I don't know where it's from. And instead of, like filling it, within like our church and stuff, I ended up like filling it with just like a bunch of friends, like because I have a very outgoing personality. So I just started, gaining like a lot of friends to keep filling that void, and just like started hanging out with people left and right. And then I would be like, oh, okay, well, I don't know if they're like really my friend because maybe there's something wrong with me. And, and then I started to like kind of back away. And then I went through like a bullying phase where like I was getting bullied, and all of that like it just stemmed from rejection, not feeling like I was good enough for people.
So did you feel like you couldn't be your full self around people, like you had to earn their approval or something?
Yeah, pretty much. So I was like a try hard, I had to like try to be super cool like everyone else when I was younger, and just like, okay, well, yeah, sure, I'll do that. That's weird, but I'll do it. You'll be my friend.
Did that get you in trouble? Like, what did that look like, being a tryhard?
100%. I actually, I actually ended up being nominated in my elementary school for class clown because I was just like, I always acted out. I mean, I'm super funny anyways, but but like I was just always acting out, always trying to gain attention any way I possibly could.
Uh-huh.
And that all of that was completely stemmed from rejection. And then going into middle school, that's when I was introduced to, just all the wrong type of people. And I met this one girl and she like smoked cigarettes. Sixth grade, I started smoking cigarettes. Yes. Started smoking cigarettes in the school bathroom, everything. I would like go into lunch just like smelling like a huge cigarette. It was gross.
Who gives a child, a little baby who just finished wetting the bed, some cigarettes to smoke? And like, what? How does that even? I don't
I
even.
know it's crazy. I didn't even know that that was like a thing. I was like, so you smoke cigarettes? What is that? Like, okay, sure, I'll try one. Are you gonna be my friend though?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so like, and I mean, she was kind of like that tip of the iceberg for me, and I started hanging out with her because she was cool, like people liked her, so I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna be her friend, and then I'll gain friends and gain people's and people will start to like me because I'm like a cool, like edgy person now. And
Like, look at me. I'm this edgy.
yeah, like look, I'm smoking a cigarette. How cool am I, right?
Wow, that's crazy because it's like, yeah, I mean, like I guess I hear these stories about like a six-year old or sixth grader smoking cigarettes, but it's like,
Oh no, it's very, very real. Yeah. And it's funny because I always thought in my head, like growing up, like all my cousins, they grew up very well off, and my family had like a lot and always provided for them. They grew up with their parents, and like I would come and visit them and be like, you guys will never guess what I did. And they're just like, why would you do that? And I'm just like, wait, that's like the thing to do though. Like that's what cool people do, right?
and it all stems from rejection from your father then.
That is, I mean, over the years of me praying about it and God like really just taking control of like my mind and thinking that's always been where he's appointed me to where all that stems from, not feeling like I'm good enough in relationships, whether it be in like friendships or like actual relationships. And from day one, that's where it stemmed from. And like my acting out and always like needing attention in many different ways. I think that is completely and utterly all stemmed from rejection from my dad leaving.
So there's like a huge like attention magnet in you that you just need because
Yeah.
you didn't, or still like after years of like reflecting on this kind of stuff, this kind of where you landed with it.
Yeah.
That's rough, man. That's rough.
Yeah.
Like what do you say to a girl who's kind of maybe dealt with that kind of stuff?
I mean, it's kind of hard because I know that when I was in that situation, it's like no one could tell me anything. And I really just, growing up having to, I guess, grow up really, really fast. I always had like a very independent personality,
Mhm.
but always had this sense of dependency. So, I mean, like if I were to talk to anyone that would kind of go through that, or a young girl that's going through that, I would just always encourage her to kind of like stray more into kind of like the church side of it and fill the voids that you're feeling inside of you with God, because the worst thing I did was stray away. People always think, "Oh yeah, all the earthly things are going to like drugs, drinking, partying, friends, boyfriends, all that stuff's going to fill it." But at the end of the day, the deep-rooted issue that you have, it's not going to be fixed until you face it head on with God. And
Gotcha.
I mean, that took me till I was almost 21 to realize, oh wow, I have a problem. Like I have a rejection issue deep rooted inside of me from my dad, and I'm looking for it in all the wrong places.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So your middle school now. Where is it taking? Where's middle school taking you into high school?
So middle school, I was still living up in the Orlando area, and my mom had taken a position up there, which always had her extremely busy, and I didn't have any family there except for my older brother. So I was always at friends' houses, and mainly that girl who started smoking cigarettes with me. Then she introduced me to drinking. So seventh grade, I think, was the first time I ever really had like a drink.
Okay.
And then she dabbled in a little bit of drugs as well. and that didn't hit until about 8th grade. So
Drug.
it's like all of these things that I'm experiencing, and I would tell her all the time, I'm like, yeah, like with everything that I went through, like I always felt like, like I just like kind of wanted to die. Like I don't want my life to be like this. And she's like, oh, well, like I cut myself. You should cut yourself with me. And I'm just like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, but okay. Like, does it make you feel better? Because anything to make me feel good about myself would be great. And then, like started to self-harm like for a little bit. But then I think I kind of like looked at myself in the mirror like, this is not who you are. Like, why are you doing this? Like,
How did that how did that start again? So is it like so she introduced the concept to you?
yeah, she would get really drunk and she would do it in front of me actually. And I would watch her just cut herself right in front of me. And like that like scarred me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like is she okay? But then she would tell me like how good she felt doing it. And and I was just like, oh, okay. And I mean, 110%, it's a cry out for help. It really is. And it's just like, like look at me, look at what's going on with me, like focus on me. That's
Yeah.
all it really is.
Yeah. Wow. And so you started doing it because she showed you how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hid it from, I actually don't think till this day my mom even knows some of the things that I would do. Cause, I kind of over the years submitted that to God and kept it very personal to myself and just between me and the Lord.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I think back to it, and I do ministry where like I'll be with middle schoolers and I'm just like, whoa, like thinking about you doing what I was doing is actually extremely scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because these kids are like, I mean, I remember when I was seventh grade, I was super impressionable. I had no idea what anything was, honestly. I thought I was smart. I wasn't.
Hmm.
Oh man, it's tough. And especially now, these kids got it. I mean, personally, I think they got it tougher because you've got so many voices in their life, and any one of them could be crazy. You know,
Right.
they need God. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you're starting to cut now, and you probably just stopped. It was short lived.
Oh yeah, very short lived, and it was soon after that. It was more like 7th and all of 8th grade. I started to like get bullied, and I went over to I just could never ever forget this. Like just in my brain, I went over to two girls' house that I thought were my friends, and MySpace was just being introduced. So I went over there and I called my mom, like, hey, am I allowed to make a MySpace? Like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, that's fine. Whatever. Like, I'll let you do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I made a MySpace with these girls, and I didn't have a computer at home, mind you. We're barely making ends meet.
Yeah.
And I went into school, like, so that was like a Friday. I went to school Monday morning, and everyone was just looking at me like, I don't even know, like I killed their dogs. Like everyone was just looking at me like, ew, like there's Caitlin and this and that. And then I start hearing like rumors, and I'm like, what is going on? And I guess the girls like put on there, that I was like this big lesbian, and like I was this and I was that and I was nasty and I was a hoe, and I was just like like 11 like or 12, like I don't even know how old I was, like I guess like 11 or 12. And they didn't just do that, but they messaged every girl in our school and would just message them and like say like things that I didn't even know were a thing, like sexual things and this and that. And I actually was completely bullied by most of the school because things were different, back in the early 2000s um when I was in middle school. So it's like things weren't accepted certain types of ways, and people judged people like crazy hard with bullying. I mean, bullying is still very real, but it was so crazy to like be the one that was going through it. And yeah, wow. It was pretty crazy, and I think that's also what took a toll on me. Like, wow, I really, and like, this is probably why my dad doesn't love me. This is probably why like these people don't love me, because like this is probably who I am. Like these girls are telling me I'm something. This must be who I am. And that started depression. That 100% instilled it inside of me, and then anxiety started, and I would have panic attacks, and all of that just completely stemmed from that moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did that last? What did you do?
So it lasted probably until like the end of 8th grade. And then I started to like tell my mom that I was being bullied, and like girls would sit down next to me at lunch and just start punching my rib cage, and then they would get up and leave. Yeah. It was crazy. Like I think back to it now, and like I finally told my mom, and my mom is your typical Italian New Yorker, and she's just like, "Oh my God, like if they do that again, like make sure they hit you first and then you'll hit them back and don't stop hitting them till they don't get up." And I'm just like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" Like I'm like this big when I was in middle school, and I'm just like my mom is like telling me it's okay to fight back, if someone's hitting me. So I think it was like the end of 8th grade. A couple of these girls like stood up to me, and I finally stood up for myself. And I was like, well, I mean, if you guys are looking for a fight, I'll fight you. And then they were just like, no, we don't want any problems. And they stepped down for me. And I'm like, oh, that's all it took was to just defend myself? And that, I mean, it was a good thing and a bad thing for me, because the bullying definitely stopped for the rest of the school year. And that summer, like it's weird, all these people I thought were my friends, but obviously they were just bullying me that whole past year. But it also instilled a very hard-heartedness inside of me, and I thought that, okay, fighting is okay as long as I feel threatened. Fighting is fine. And then that, caused more anger issues, more depression, and all of that just led into my high school years.
I always thought that, like, if a middle schooler, stands or bullies someone, it's paper. If someone would just stand up to them, they'll fold, no problem. But I never thought about the other side, like what happens if you go through someone who does muster it all up and then finds that out, and then finds out that their problems are being resolved by bowing up and fighting. What
Right.
you're willing to fight. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you're in high school now.
Yeah. So I moved back. I moved back to my hometown after that, and I didn't know anyone except for my cousins that went to the same high school as me, and everyone was extremely straight edged in the town that I lived in. They were Nobody did anything like smoking cigarettes, drinking, smoking weed. That was not a thing at all.
You were doing
So
all that before.
huh?
You were doing all that before.
Right. Yeah. In middle school, I was just doing that with, a couple of like my girlfriends and some guys that we knew, like a lot of skater dudes I used to hang out with. But yeah, so then into high school, as a freshman, I didn't really do much, and I kind of stayed very low key. I didn't talk to anyone, and I just, I was like, okay, I need to start feeling this out. Like these people are really like straight edge. I don't have any friends that are going to do anything with me. So then, I want to say it was about halfway into the year, I started meeting some girls, and they're actually like, some of them to this day are like some of my best friends, but started getting into the whole party scene. And, in high school, you're a little bit older. So, you look a little bit older, fake IDs, clubbing on the weekends, 15 years old in a club, doing all of that, getting completely wrapped up into that whole lifestyle of just, this feels good. I can do drugs and drink on the weekend and still be perfectly fine to go to school and be great. And that all started. I think that, yeah, I was about a freshman at the more so like the end of freshman year, and then fighting, anger, parties. If you looked at me or my friends the wrong way, I was the first one in your face fighting you for no reason.
Wow. And that started in middle school.
Yeah. Oh,
What kind of drugs were you doing?
So I was smoking a lot of weed. I did like Molly's. It's a ecstasy. I did cocaine. Anything I could really get my hands on. Nothing like super super hardcore. But I mean, yeah, they're pretty hardcore though. Like you think about what's in ecstasy, and I'm just like,
I don't know if you've lost the barometer for what's hardcore, but cocaine is hardcore.
it is very hardcore. But when you're like in it, you're just like, you don't realize how bad it is. But like now that I really do think back, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's pretty aggressive. It's an aggressive drug. But
Okay.
yeah, so yeah.
You were only in ninth grade too.
Yeah, so that didn't I didn't start doing like I was just really smoking weed throughout high school, and then
Okay.
well, I was probably like more senior years when I started the more harder stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did
but
you,
drinking every weekend, lying to my mom where I was, clubbing on the weekends, clubbing with a fake ID. I had a fake ID all throughout high school.
I assume guys were a part of this picture too.
Yeah, so once I had gotten into the whole party scene, going for older guys was my thing
Hmm.
because it was always like I don't know, I feel like because they were like older and they like protection wise, that's what I sought out for in a man to kind of like fill that void of my dad. So it was always like older guys, and obviously you can get in like that's like a big deal, when I'm going for like 22-year-olds when I'm 15. And yeah, so it was just going after the wrong type of guy and just making me feel.
Did you think through this kind of stuff, or what was it just how you felt?
No, I mean it was just kind of like how I felt. Like
Hmm.
I went with the flow. In high school, I stopped caring because I went through the whole bullying stage, and then I got into high school and I was like, "All right, yeah, I mean, school's not that important to me. Like I don't really care. Like I'm just going to kind of breeze through it, but I'm going to do whatever I want. No one's going to tell me what to do. Like I'm not going to be stepped all over." Like I went into high school with this whole idea of no one will ever, do anything again to make me feel vulnerable or inferior to them.
Hmm.
So I think, that also attracts the wrong type of people in your life,
You've been
very toxic people.
you've been so hurt between your dad and all these people at school that you put a shell up and you go into
Right.
a new setting with this shell or this like prickly exterior, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes, definitely. And that was bad, obviously, because it, led me into this lifestyle that I was so addicted to. It was like if no one was doing anything, I had to go find something to do because I couldn't stand being alone with my thoughts, because it's really funny because through all of this, I had never stopped believing in God. I stopped going to church and everything, but I never stopped believing that someone was up there. And I always knew I knew who God was, but I never felt who God was. I don't
Yeah.
know if that makes sense, but I never let myself feel that because I think I could have died so many times. I could have went to jail so many times. And I think like through all of this, God just had like this protection over me. And I would go home at night afterwards and I would pray and I would just be like, God, like I know I haven't talked to you in a long time, but like I still feel like you're there and I'm lost and I don't know what to do. But then I would get up in the morning, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm fine. Whatever drug I was on that made me feel crazy, I'm fine. So I don't need God. I'm good. So I'm going to keep going.
So you got high, almost died. You're gonna have to explain that a little bit in a second, but almost died, and then pray to God while you were high, like after a night, and then just kind of say, "Hey."
Yeah, I mean, I would come home like either if I was like drunk or high or whatever, and I would like want it to stop because like when you're going and partying and moving around, you don't realize how it's affecting you until you stop. And then when you're alone in a room and it's spinning and you're seeing things and like things are happening, like I would just like pray like, okay, like God, I need you. I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Like I need you to help me get through this. And I would like spaz out. And I also, I dealt with anxiety and panic attacks. So on top of doing drugs, it didn't really do me justice at all.
Yeah, sure. So
But yeah, so
explain how you almost died. What is that? What is that about?
I mean, I have been to many different drug meetups with guns and people that are not necessarily good. A guy that I was dating was much older than me. I think I was 16 or 17 and he was about 25,
Hmm.
and he was a drug dealer, and I would just like go on runs with him and guns were pulled out on us many different times. And yeah, and then getting in cars with friends who have been drunk driving. I got into a bunch of car accidents where I had to jump in the like in the front seat as the driver because I was probably the one who only had like one drink and I was just high. So I could blow into like a test and not test positive for alcohol, but I was just on drugs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there's just many different scenarios and situations that I put myself in where I really could have died. And
Okay. So, and God has been protecting you since that time. So, where did it all change? Like, what's going on now? Like,
so After high school, I still continued a little bit. I want to say, probably till about 2013 or 14. Got a little bit crazier, turned 21, I turned 18, then I turned 21, and everything just got worse. And then,
How much
you
worse?
know, it was more drugs, more drinking, because now I can buy it. Or I can, now I have older friends, or, so that got worse. Filling my voids emotionally with different guys, and just kind of being like, oh, okay, well, you just broke my heart. Okay, now I'm going to go to this one. Oh, you broke my heart. Okay, I'm going to go to this one. But in the process of this, I'm just like, okay, but drugs. So no guys, drugs. No guys. Okay, guys, now drugs. Like, it was like I didn't know where I wanted to stay, and I was just like all over the place with that. And so that flash forwarded to, I want to say, like 2013, 14, and I was driving one day, and I literally told myself, I'm like, you have nothing else. Run into the tree and kill yourself, because you're nothing. You have nothing. No one loves you. Everyone's just in it because you have good connects. You can party, you're loud, you're outgoing, you'll give people alcohol if they ask for it. That's all you're good for. So I was veering my car off the road, and I just started crying, and I felt this overwhelming warmness go through my body. And it was, I mean, then I didn't really know what it was, but I think it was truly like the Holy Spirit just being like, you have something. Don't do this. And I turned the car around, and I went straight to my grandparents' house. And I sat there, and I was really close to my grandparents. Like I said, they kind of raised me. And I sat there with my grandmother, and I told her, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I should be doing. I believe in God, but I don't really know what that looks like anymore. And I know you guys have always raised me to love him, and I don't know what that looks like anymore. And I just want to die every single day. And of course that broke my grandmother's heart, listening to me say that to her. And this also happened, after like my first real big heartbreak, leaving me for another girl, making me feel like I'm not good enough. It's being cheated on. It was just how it was. Not being number one, always being like the side girl or whatever. And all of this just built me up to that moment where I was like, wow, I'll be perfectly fine if I'm just dead right here.
So you were rejected by multiple guys, or by one guy? Like they were
Yeah.
cheating?
I mean, it was like little flings. And then there was one specific guy where I was like, oh wow, I've never been in love before. And like, he seems to be it. And I think I was like about 19, 20. I mean, it was an ongoing thing for almost 5 years, just back and forth, back and forth. And he actually ended up leaving me for a way younger girl. And I was just like, whoa, like, what don't I have that she has? And I wasn't good enough, and this and that. Like, he's fighting to do more things for this one person, but like, I'm of age. We can go out. Like, I don't have a bedtime, or like I don't have a curfew. And what did I do wrong?
Hmm.
And that triggered once again that rejection of, okay, so I'm not good enough, and my dad left, so every guy that's coming into my life will leave every time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're flash forward, you're at your grandparents' house, and you're kind of revealing all this stuff to them, like I want to die every day.
Yeah, I mean, it was more to just my grandmother, because I didn't want to. I don't know. I didn't want to say anything anyways, but I always um idolized how my grandmother lived her life as a Christian, and her story and everything. And I knew if I came to her with that, like, she would pray over me, and she just had like just this sense about her where anytime I was in her presence, I felt calm. And that was because she had just the overwhelming peace of God over her, and it was just so amazing to just see that. And yeah, so she prayed for me, and then she was like, well, listen, if you want, you can start volunteering with me at the church. And at this point, I couldn't keep a job to save my life, because I was doing 100 different things. So I was like, all right, I was babysitting here and there, babysitting. um, but but yeah, so I was like, all right, I'll come to the church. I'll volunteer. And I started volunteering and folding papers for Sunday morning and, just doing a bunch of stuff, like helping people out around the church. And I'll never forget this one day I was like walking down the halls and I was singing, and the worship leader of the church that I went to actually was like, "Hey, come here." And she like pulled me into her office and she was like, "Girl, you got a voice." And I was just like, "No," I was like, I don't really like sing like that though. And she's like, "Do me a favor. We're doing, our auditions for the worship team." She's like, "Come. I would love to, audition you and this and that." And I was just like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." So I actually never ended up going. And then months later, I was like, "All right, whatever. I'll go." Like, I've been going to church now for about a month and a half. I'll go. So I ended up going and making the worship team, and she just kind of took me under her wing. And, you know, this specific person really, 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 truly showed me what a relationship with God looked like. It wasn't I had to be any certain type of way. It wasn't really anything. It was just come as you are, because he loves you and he died for you and he forgives you for everything. She looked at me in my face and she was like, "Kate," she's like, "Do you know, after everything that you've done, everything that you've been through, God still loves you for exactly who you are?"
Amen.
And I was like, "No, because everyone rejects me. No one loves me, and I don't really feel like being loved by anyone because I don't have enough love to give around, and I'm done. I'm done loving people. I'm done trying with people." And she's like, "But that's the thing. You don't have to do anything." And I was just like, all right. So, and that concept can be really hard for anyone to grasp, really, because,
Sure.
you're just like, ew, we're gross. We're people who just do these crazy things to people all day long. We're sinners. We're terrible. And she would just take me under her wing. I mean, I could call her at 2 a.m. and just be like, "Hey, I'm super depressed and, I need someone." And she would be there for me. So then in this process, it was probably like a good year. She really molded me into this worship leader that she felt like God was calling me to be. And I was like, God's calling me into a leadership position now in the church. Like, I was like, hold up, this is all too much. So then like I like backed away from it, and I fell off again. And I want to say that I was probably like 20 at that point, and I like fell off again, and I was like, no, 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 it's too much. I can't. It's too much. I don't want people to start looking at me for, advice and this and that. Like, I'm not a person that anyone can come to right now. Like, I'm broken, and
Yeah.
I'm unfixable. So so then like I ended up leaving that church actually, and I still kept in contact with this girl, and anytime I needed her, she'd be there for me in a heartbeat. But then a couple of my like younger friends were like, "Hey, all right, you don't really go to church. Like, we get that. We know how you feel about church. Because I would always say, like, I don't need to go to church to be a Christian. Like, I can just do my thing from home, and I don't need anyone. Like, I need me and God." And I'm just like, but I'm like the most extroverted, outgoing person ever. Like, I'm like, I need people. Like, I can't not have friends in my life. And, God single-handedly like says you need community.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So they invited me to a young adults group, and I ended up going, and worship was absolutely amazing this night that I went. And I just found myself like I've never been like an expressive worship like person. Like, I never really raised my hands or anything, which it's not like you don't have to do that to worship, but it's just like an expression of worship. And I fell to my knees, and I had never done that before. I didn't even know what was happening to me. And I just felt this overwhelming feeling over me, the same feeling I felt right before I really was about to like drive my car right into a tree. And I was like, I felt this before. I don't know what this is, but I felt this before. And I was like, I'm going to be more open to it. And I started praying. And I felt God, not audibly tell me, but I felt in my heart God was saying, this is going to be your home church, and this is where I'm going to change your life. And I was like, whoa. And from that moment on, I put everything down. I became sober. I didn't do anything anymore. I would go out every now and again, but I had to really take a complete break from it because it was too tempting to be out and not want to, do stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a riveting moment, and it was this like life altering feeling of overwhelming love that I had never experienced before. And I was like, if I didn't think God was real before, God is really real, because I had never felt this before from any human, any drug, any alcohol, any party, anything. And I
Wow.
was like, I want this forever. I don't even care what I have to do to get it.
Wow. So cold turkey. After like what I would think is discipleship with an older mentor, like a
Mm.
older lady. Not that much. I have no idea who that is. But then community around you, and then like getting plugged into a church, and then a worship setting.
Yeah.
You had a whole wave of love and like just peace over you.
Yeah. And it was crazy because I didn't think that I could stop all these things that I was doing, because I was so addicted to it. I was addicted to that lifestyle of yes, I want more of that. I need more of that. Like, I need the drugs to numb me, the alcohol to numb me from what I'm feeling. And I'm not saying that it hasn't been a journey or hard, because I mean, it's the toughest thing to just remain on that straight and narrow path. But through it all, God completely continues to show his love for me every single time I feel like I'm gonna fall. You
Yeah.
know, and there are always gonna be moments where I'm gonna feel weak, but you know, in my weakness,
Yeah.
he's my strength. So
After those moments, and after this like little kind of life changing decision, uh, where are you now? Like, where's a walk with God taken you? How you said it's been hard, it's easy, it's been ups and downs. What are the biggest challenges that you face with God by your side?
so you know, as I started attending this church, I actually ended up dating one of the young adults pastors. And this was completely different for me. I'm like, whoa, like I'm dating a pastor. And you know, people, like, I have like a bunch of tattoos, and people would look at me like, you're with that girl? She seems a little for you. Like, you're a pastor. And you know, and I had joined the worship team there, and I became a worship leader. You know,
Mhm.
I was singing there every Sunday, and I was dating a pastor, and you know, we were just going through like these moments together. And I think because I had never known what a real relationship looked like, I think God brought this guy into my life as a season to show me this is what love looks like in a relationship. And where, I mean, we're not together anymore, but I couldn't be more blessed that God brought that specific person into my life, because he showed me what it looks like, you know, to put God as the center of your relationship instead of, you know, putting all these other things above, you know, God. And I think that, you know, God will bring people into your life for a season, but you know, through this trial, like that I went through, it was, you know, really tough because I had lost my grandmother, actually, who was who was like my everything. You know, she's the one who taught me everything about God. She's the one that I would confide in about everything. And you know, I um I had signed up to go on a missions trip for the first time, like since I like really like gave myself to the Lord again. And I think I was like 21 or 22, and my grandmother died a day before this missions trip. And I was like, whoa. So now I have to fly out, and me and the young adults pastor had recently broken up, and it was like the first thing I wanted to do was just go out, you know, completely get rid of this trip. I don't even care how much money I spent on getting, you know, whatever, the fundraising, I don't care, you know. And then my grandpa gave me a letter, and the letter had money in it, and it was my grandmother. She wrote me a letter, and it said, it doesn't matter what happens in life, you're meant to go on this trip because you were always meant to lead people and to care for people and to love people. And I was like, whoa, okay, so I guess I'm going. And I actually,
Oh, that's from the beyond the grave. You can't not, bro.
I know. So, you know, and it's really crazy because she actually bought me this Bible years ago on Christmas. And I'm like, really? I got a Bible for Christmas? And and she wrote the in the like on the cover, and it's Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. That was like her go-to thing for me, because I always felt very weak in everything I did. And she's like, well, you can do anything through Christ because he's your strength.
Yeah.
Kate, you are not strong, but he's your strength. And that was always my go-to verse, no matter how like cliche of a Christian to be like, oh, well, you could do all things through Christ.
Yeah.
But she had gave me this Bible, and that was my travel Bible. So I was like, reading more into the word and just getting really close with God, because I was like, I don't want to fill the void of my grandmother's death with drugs. I don't want to fill the void of me breaking up, or me and the young adults pastor I was dating. I don't want to take that breakup and fill it with alcohol or do this. So I was filling it with God. And I actually get to Panama, and we have these cots, and on each cot is like a little card, and it's like a welcome card saying like, oh, welcome to the beautiful, city of Panama. And each person had a specific scripture verse on their card.
No.
And my scripture verse was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then, a couple of days prior to that, I had gotten that letter from my grandmother, and I was like, whoa, like God really does have a hand in everything that you do, and you just don't even realize it until you're open-minded to it. Yeah. And, so there's been many trials of that. Another like breakup I recently went through, just a lot of hardships and staying focused, staying on the right track. And, it's a struggle. Every day it's a struggle. But
what's a hard example of struggle?
Just like, I actually almost got married twice, and I think I have just this super high standard of marriage from what I saw like my dad fail with my mom, that I get scared. And that's something currently that God's working on me with is, it's gonna be hard. Marriage is gonna be hard, Kate. Like, why do you keep breaking up with people? And I'm bringing you people into your life, but and I think that's like the biggest hardship that I'm going through right now is, that there's worth in me because God is in me. And I guess the biggest hardship is feeling like it's okay to put a wall down and let someone in that God has for me. And that person will come along because that person will understand what I'm going through and understand where my standards lie. But, God is still breaking down a couple of my walls to get me to that point. But
yeah.
But
well, we're not finished pieces, There's this
right.
aspect of, scripture that says like we are continually being shaped into his image. It's just where we are. You've had a long journey and a long road, and God's been with you the whole time, as you've said. And
right.
super grateful. Hey, look, we're gonna wrap this up, but I want to know two things before we go. Where are you being taken to now? Like, what's the future look like for Kate? What are you doing with God? What's going on?
So I'm actually not too sure yet. I think that he has like big plans for me, but I don't really know where that is right now. And I think that's okay. I think, in the waiting is not the most terrible place to be, but, I think that God is calling me into a place of leadership somewhere. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just really, I think this is a moment in my life that I've never been in, where I actually don't really know where God is going to bring me. And we're all scared of the unknown, but all I know is God is showing me to put a lot of trust in him. Because, I still sing at my church, and, I do a lot of that stuff. I actually just found out that the company I've been working for a while is shutting down. So it's like now I'm out of a job and looking, and I think this is another phase of God saying, okay, well, put your trust in me because I have things for you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where I'm at right now. But my walk with him is not perfect, and I'm definitely not perfect, but every day I will strive to be Christ-like because that's what he calls me to do.
Yeah, there's no perfect people here in God's kingdom.
Right.
There's only one.
Yeah, Scott.
Let's I'm super happy, and I was super glad to understand a little bit of where you've been and what God has been doing in your life. I'd like to ask you one last question. Why do you think God is awesome, Kate?
God is awesome because even though we are so imperfect and these sinners, he just continues to love us for exactly who we are. And that is the most awesome thing that anyone could ask for, because there's some people that it's really hard to love, and unconditionally that love that he shows is just amazing. And he's just so awesome in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Hey, we're going to say hi to a couple of our friends who just joined us through this live podcast. We're going to say what's up. Carrie says what's up to you, Kate. Arnell, Levi, and Dan have been in here. If you guys have any questions for Kate, let us know in the comments section below. If you are catching this on the replay, give us a hashtag replay, maybe even a let's go Kate.
Yeah.
Just a thank you to Kate for being here with us. Be sure to share her testimony with someone that you might feel like might relate to Kate. And I'm sure, knowing Kate, I know that she would be happy to maybe speak to some people. I don't know.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah. Levi says Kate was amazing. That was amazing. So yeah.
Thanks, Levi.
Yeah, Kate, it has been a pleasure knowing you for so long, and I can't wait to see where God takes you in the future. So yeah, thank you so much for being on this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
You guys, thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Like, share, review us. Really, we're building a community here of people who really think God is awesome. We'll see you guys next time.